Want to stay up to date with everything that's happening on the show? Or do you have a story that you'd like to submit for one of our Listener Stories episodes? You can get in touch with the show via the website at www.hauntedukpodcast.com, on Instagram at hauntedukpodcast, on X at hauntedukpod, or you can email us at contactus@hauntedukpodcast.com. We're also on Facebook and TikTok. And if you want to support the show, you can do it via either Patreon or Ko-fi. Both platforms have exactly the same content, but work in slightly different ways. One of the advantages of Patreon is its sleek user interface, but if you want to avoid those pesky additional charges Apple, Google, and Patreon apply to your subscription, then why not give Ko-fi a try? Simply open a browser window and type ko-fi/Haunted UK Podcast. That's Ko-fi/Haunted UK Podcast, and you'll soon find us. Whichever platform you choose, we're sure you'll enjoy the bonus content. Thanks for listening, and enjoy the episode.
The dog went everywhere with us, but there was no way we could get her into the van. It was as if she knew something was very wrong. It was a terrifying journey to the rubbish tip, and once we arrived, we energetically began throwing the items into the trash. But as quickly as we were throwing them away, people began pulling the items back out. Even when we tried to warn them about what these things were capable of, we were ignored. Once home, my brother confessed he'd been seeing dark shadows moving around the house, always just out of view, in his peripheral vision. He also mentioned something very strange, and that was he'd always wake up at around 3 a.m. in absolute terror. This was the exact time that our dog had woken up our mother after I'd seen the apparition. This is episode 50, part 4 of the Haunted UK podcast, and we are treated once more to another amazing collection of your stories. We welcome you all back, joining us once again to listen to part 4 of Season 5's Listener Stories episodes. As always, every single story has been fantastic, and we have so many more to come. So let's start off by joining TH, who wishes to remain anonymous. His story takes place at one of the most haunted locations in the UK, Dover Castle. Whilst the castle itself was built just under 1,000 years ago, the history of the site it sits on goes back way further. Some suggest that there could have been some sort of fortification there as far back as the Iron Age. This is due to unusual findings being discovered during excavations at the site. It comes as no surprise that defences were built there because its position has been crucial throughout its long history. From being used to spot and deter sea-bound invasions from Europe, to housing top-secret tunnels and facilities, which would have been used in the events of a nuclear war. But it's not the ghost of a Roman, a Norman, or even a Saxon, which was encountered by TH. Instead, It was something much more recent. And with that, we'll hand over to TH right now. Hi there. I'll start off by asking if you've had any stories sent in about Dover Castle in Kent. It's one of the most historical locations in the UK, with parts of the site dating back to the Romans and most recently the Cold War. There's a few ghost stories there, and I think I've had one. Chislehurst Caves is another one notorious for paranormal incidents, so that might be another location to look into. It's a fantastic site, and well worth a visit if you're in Kent as well. I've been there maybe 20 times. Okay, so on with my first story. In my spare time, I have a huge interest in military history, mainly from the First World War to the modern day. As a result, I've visited Dover Castle on several occasions, as I've always liked castles as well. Underneath the cliffs of Dover Castle are a series of secret wartime tunnels. These were built during the Napoleonic period, and they were originally used as barracks in case Napoleon invaded Britain. Later, they were repurposed most famously in World War II, where in 1940 they were used to plan Operation Dynamo, which was the evacuation from Dunkirk. There was also a level of tunnels dug, which were known as the Annex level, which was an underground hospital dressing station and barracks for the Army, Royal Navy and the Royal Air Force. There are tours available which go down into both Annex level and Casemate level for Operation Dynamo, and both tunnels have a strange feeling and atmosphere. In the Annex level tour, they take you through the reception area which leads to a large central tunnel with several smaller rooms off to the side which had barracks, medical wards and operating theatres in them. At the end of the long tunnel is a light blue door which is locked shut. I was at the back of the group and looked down the tunnel and saw a young tall man in what looked like a World War II Royal Navy uniform walk through the bolted shut blue doors, then straight into the tunnel wall. I thought it was part of the tour, as the Royal Navy had admirals and other officers based at Dover. Vice Admiral Bertram Ramsay was based at Dover when he was in command planning the Dunkirk evacuation. Later in the tour, we walked through an RAF dormitory and ended up back in the long tunnel, but this time at the end, where I saw the naval officer at the start of the tour. I looked around the tunnel looking for a projector or anything that would explain what I'd seen, but couldn't see anything to give reasoning to it. At the end of the tour, I went and spoke to some of the tour staff and mentioned it, fully expecting them to reveal a cleverly hidden way to explain it. But they said there was nothing down there at all. Since this happened, I've tried to find out if there were any other similar stories, but have so far found nothing. But I have read about several stories of the apparitions of naval officers being seen throughout the secret wartime tunnels. After the war tunnels were closed, but during the Cold War, they were used again as a regional seat of government, in case of a nuclear attack on Britain. I've been down into the dumpy level, and whilst nothing happened down there, I did feel uneasy the whole time, as if I was being watched. I've been down on the tour of the tunnels since several times, but have never seen the naval officer again, even when being at the back of the group, trying to replicate the scenario when I first saw it the first time. I love the show, and often listen to it whilst working or on long coach journeys around the UK. Keep up the great work and best wishes. TH. We now travel to Kent to hear from Ashley and her incredible experiences which have taken place over her entire life. There are many different forms of the paranormal at work here, but also natural conditions such as sleep paralysis. It seems that Ashley has been able to tap into the paranormal all of her life, and while many of her experiences are scary and disturbing, They're also incredibly fascinating. There is so much within these stories: apparitions, poltergeist activity, imaginary friends, even a creepy tale about a haunted workplace, as well as a number of experiences in one of the most haunted locations in the UK. So let's hear from Ashley. My name is Ashley and I'm from the UK, more specifically Kent, the home of Pluckley, also known as the most haunted village in Britain. I'm hoping this isn't going to be too long, but I have had my fair share of spooky happenings in my life and would just like to let you and the listeners know about these incidents. My first experience was when I was around 3 years old. I was an only child at this point, so to obviously entertain myself, I had 2 imaginary friends. I told my mum they were 2 children in Victorian clothing. Not sure how I would know what Victorian was at that age. And I used to play hide and seek with them. Very creepy. And my mum used to hear me talking, waiting for a reply and responding. One day, when I was playing hide and seek with them, my mum asked me where they were, and I told her, "They're in the wardrobe, Mummy." And almost instantly, knocking noises could be heard, coming from inside the wardrobe. As soon as we moved from this house when I was maybe about 4 years old, I just stopped talking about them. Sleepwalking isn't something that I ever do, except for one occasion, when I was 7. At the time, we were living in a 3-story house, and my brothers and I had a playroom. This was in the attic, which had been fully converted. I obviously had all my toys up there, and a bed for when I moved into my own room, as I shared with my 3-year-old brother at the time. Anyway, one night, my mum's ex-husband, my ex-stepdad, heard me talking, so decided to investigate, and found me upstairs in the attic room talking to someone. Now, my stepdad was, and probably still is, a massive skeptic, so he likely thought I was just playing when I should have been asleep. He came upstairs and saw me sitting on the bed facing the corner, talking. When he asked me who I was talking to, I turned to him slowly and said, "The man in the corner," and pointed to an empty corner of the room. Safe to say, he rushed me out of that room and back to my bed. Another strange thing that used to happen in that house involved a framed painting. It belonged to my mum, and it used to move around the house of its own accord. It would literally take itself off the wall and turn up in random places with no explanation. We would also experience smells of food cooking in our kitchen, when nothing was being cooked. Our house was detached, so it couldn't have come from the neighbors. My brother also used to get night terrors in this house, something that he never suffered anywhere else, and I had to share a bedroom with him at this time, and it would really freak me out. He would sit up, look you dead in the eye like he was staring into your soul, and then speak a language that none of us had heard, and then lie back down and go back to sleep. This only happened in this room, and once we moved out, he never did it again. Strangely enough, I also had recurring nightmares in this house, and although they weren't necessarily scary, they still used to freak me out all the same. I can't really explain why they scared me, but I used to wake up screaming. On one occasion, after waking up, I witnessed a girl walking around my room in slow motion. It was so incredibly strange and very, very concerning, and I couldn't move quick enough to get out of there. Moving on to when I was 18 years old, and by now we'd moved into a new house. We'd had absolutely no paranormal experiences for around 10 years. We knew, however, that the grandmother of the stepdad at the time had passed away in the house before we moved in. This new house was only 5 years old, but the land it had been built on was the site of a block of flats, which had burnt down. My mum never liked being downstairs by herself in this house, and one night when my stepdad was snoring, she came into my bedroom to sleep with me, instead of going downstairs. This was completely fine by me, but her sleep was abruptly disturbed at some point in the early hours of the morning, when I woke up screaming. My mum shot up and saw that I was crying, and when she asked what was wrong, I told her that I'd opened my eyes. I saw a girl floating above me, around 6 inches from my face, with green skin and hollowed out eyes. Now, a little side note here, I do sometimes hallucinate when I'm sleeping, and I can't really explain it because I can see the room as if I was awake, and I can remember doing it. And even when I'm doing it, I know what I'm doing. I have an awareness. I've hallucinated all sorts of things, including spiders crawling up the side of my bedside cabinet, a dog in my room jumping up at the door, and a squirrel crawling over my curtains. Coming from Kent, as I mentioned at the start of my stories, and being close to Pluckley, you won't be surprised to know that I've been to Pluckley twice, and have had experiences on both occasions. On my first visit, we pulled up outside the only pub in the village, and as I looked around, I saw what looked like a girl's face, with hollowed out eyes and pale skin, staring at me from the pub window. She seemed familiar to me. I didn't mention anything to my friends who were with me at the time, as I didn't want to scare anybody, but they mentioned to me as we were leaving that they'd seen her as well. The village has very little streetlights, so even if it wasn't known as being haunted, it would still feel pretty unsettling and creepy. On this visit, we also walked through the graveyard into the church grounds, and while we didn't see anything, something strange did happen when we walked past the door of the church. The bell inside chimed once, even though it was around 2 a.m. at the time, so that was creepy. We also heard the famous screaming coming from the Screaming Woods. The second time we visited, I was sitting in the graveyard with 2 of the guys in our group, and we were just talking and smoking when I suddenly saw what looked like a red lightning bolt shoot out of a grave. This grave was the type which had a cage around it, and I watched in astonishment as the lightning bolt went back into the grave. There is also said to be the sounds of a coach and horses heard through the winding country lanes, which we also heard, but from inside the car. I've only taken part in one actual ghost hunt in my life so far, and this was at Fort Amherst, which is in a place called Medway, also in Kent. The fort was built in 1756 and was used as a defense against those who tried to attack the naval dockyard. It also acted as a deterrent to those who tried to make their way up the Medway River. During the ghost hunt, I had the sensation of someone pushing me, actually feeling hands on my back. I also had my coat tugged. Whether this was by the same spirit, I don't know, but it was very strange. I've also witnessed strange things at my current home. I have a 2-year-old son, and on one occasion, he was going back and forth between kissing me and his dad. He then turned to the left and puckered his lips to kiss the air. We're not sure if he actually saw someone or something, but it really freaked me out, and my skeptic husband too. I hope he isn't creepy like I was. Sorry, Mum. I've also had things go missing in our house, never to be found again. My mobile phone, which I had left on my pillow while I went to the bathroom to brush my teeth, came back and it was gone. My Nintendo DS and my TV remote, neither of which were ever found. Anytime anything went missing, everyone would blame my ghost. My most recent experiences have taken place at my current workplace. I work in a well-known supermarket warehouse for home deliveries, stacking shelves on the night shift from 7 p.m. to 3 a.m., so I'm always out at the witching hour. I was never told of any spooky happenings taking place, and to be honest, I never thought to ask, as it's a fairly new building. It's only 14 years old, so you'd never think there's a possibility that it could be haunted, until you come to find out that 2 people have died there. The warehouse basically looks like a massive supermarket without the customers, and one night I was working in the frozen section, just having a chat with my colleagues, leaning against the freezers, when I suddenly felt someone come up behind me. There was no space for an actual person to do this, so it was a shocking feeling. But then I heard a voice, clear as day, shout in my ear. I then found out that we'd actually had someone die on the exact same aisle in April 2022. Another experience happened when I was working on another aisle, again talking to a colleague, when I felt someone tap my shoulder. I immediately spun around, but there was no one there. There is also one aisle at the back of the warehouse, which has the reputation of being very haunted. It's here that most of the activity occurs. Many witnesses have reported seeing items falling off the shelves, shadows moving in the corner of your eye, and just generally feeling like someone is with you. Last week, I downloaded an SLS camera app to try and find the ghosts, and caught what looks like someone still stacking shelves in the afterlife. Come on, man. Do something fun. As I said, I work nights and have a toddler, so I nap during the day, only for around 45 minutes to an hour. The last 2 times, both very recent, that I've napped, I've become aware that just as I'm about to wake, my body seems to already know that my alarm is about to go off. I end my dream sleep like a dream inception thing, and then my tinnitus gets really bad, so my ears are ringing so loud. I then get the sensation that I'm being slowly moved. The first time I felt like my legs and feet were being pushed into my bed, as if they were going through it. And the most recent time, it felt like I was being slowly moved out of the bed and placed onto the floor. Both of these experiences felt so real that I half expected to wake up and be in those positions I felt my body moving to. A more recent sleep paralysis experience that I had was when I was again napping. As with the other times, I was on my back wearing my eye mask to help block out the light. I heard what sounded like bare feet running around the carpet, and I initially thought it was my son, but he's still in a cot and has a stairgate on his door, so he couldn't have got out of his bed or his room. After the running stopped, I heard a lady talking but couldn't understand what she was saying. This was by far the creepiest sleep paralysis experience I've had so far. Thank you, Ashley. Haunted pubs are the stuff of legend. Names such as the Jamaica Inn, the Golden Fleece, and the Ancient Ram Inn are go-to locations for many paranormal investigators and ghost hunters. But there are so many more haunted pubs and inns out there, and our next listener has had first-hand experience inside one, because they lived there. Dylan, who kindly sent in these stories to the show, also sent over a photo, which you'll hear about soon. I've done a little editing with this image to try and make what's in the photo a little easier to see. I have done nothing more than alter the brightness for one version and the saturation and vibrance on another, and what shows up is quite creepy. These images will be put on the Haunted UK Podcast's Instagram and X, formerly Twitter, pages. Take a look and judge for yourselves. Hello, My name is Dylan, and for as long as I can remember, I've always experienced paranormal events. But the incidents I'm going to tell you about now took place in a pub called the Castle Inn, located in North Devon. Unfortunately, I can't tell you much about the history of the pub, apart from the fact that it was built in 1866. The pub is rumoured to be haunted by a former landlady and her son Robert, but we unfortunately don't know her name. The first experience we had was through a photograph taken by a member of staff. I've attached the image so you can take a look at it. As you'll see, it's a photo of a cold food buffet, which had been put together for a function, but if you look carefully in the background, you'll see what seems to be the faint image of a boy wearing a cowboy-type hat. We believe that this boy is the ghost of Robert. My own personal experiences are as follows and took place in 2014 one early morning between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m. I was woken up by a feeling that I can only describe as a staticky type of pins and needles in one spot on my forehead. I then saw the white misty silhouette of a person leaving my room. On another occasion, it was around 7 a.m. and I was waiting for my bus to school. To pass the time, I was talking to the pub's cleaner about an experience she'd had of witnessing a female apparition. As soon as she'd finished telling me the story, we both heard a female disembodied voice come from somewhere behind me. But there shouldn't have been anyone else in the pub at the time. I went to take a look around, but found no one. Another strange occurrence happened when I was sitting alone in the living room with the curtains shut and the lights off. I have no idea why I was doing this, but as I was sat there, I became aware of a slit of light coming through the curtains from the street lamp outside. Curiously, I watched this light black out, then reappear again as if someone had walked in front of it. This happened twice, maybe 3 times, but I distinctly remember that on the last time it happened, I saw a shadow dash from the window over towards the TV, then just disappear into the darkness. Other experiences have been reported by staff who've witnessed glasses falling off shelves and alcohol taps turning on by themselves. The spirits, pun intended, never seem to be violent in any way. It's as if they're just trying to get people's attention, saying, "Hey, I'm still here." I'll leave you with one more strange and creepy incident which happened when I was alone in the flat above the pub. My parents had decided to go out and it was getting quite late, so I decided to head to bed. But as I approached my door and started to open it, I heard a woman's voice call out from inside the empty room. Stunned by what I'd heard, I immediately turned around and went nope in a jokey, laughing manner and went back into the living room. Well, there you have it. A few of my weird and wonderful paranormal experiences. You're more than welcome to use my name and the name of the location mentioned. Thank you, Dylan. Our next collection of stories comes all the way from Canada and are absolutely fascinating. Sent into the show by Georgia, you'll soon discover that she has an uncanny knack of encountering the paranormal. We've spoken a number of times about people such as Georgia who seem to be chosen in a sense, or even primed somehow to witness so many paranormal experiences when many others never experience anything at all. Hi Steve, I found your podcast about a year ago and have been an avid listener ever since. As someone with a lot of anxiety around death, I've found comfort in hearing stories of the afterlife. Ever since I was young, I've had a fascination with ghosts and cryptids, and that curiosity has grown over the years into research and trying to find solid evidence. I'm not a full-on believer, but I'm not fully skeptical either. I've had a few unexplainable things happen to me over the course of my lifetime that I'd like to share with you. When I was 8 years old, we moved into a small, older neighborhood. The house we moved into was around 20 years old, so still quite modern for the time. I remember moving in and being excited to finally have my own room away from my brother. But as I explored the house, it began to give me an eerie feeling, especially one room in particular, the basement. I was left down there one evening during a family movie night, and my heart began to beat out of my chest. I was confused as nothing seemed to be happening, but then the tapping began. All around the room in surround sound, which was then followed by loud thumping footsteps coming down the steps and hallway. My breathing was now shallow and fast, and the only thought I had was, my brother must be pranking me, so I ran towards the footsteps to find no one. I looked in all the surrounding rooms to try to make sense of everything, and there was no one in the basement. I immediately ran upstairs and asked if anyone was coming down the stairs or tapping on the walls. They shook their heads in confusion and said they'd all been in the kitchen making popcorn and chatting. This was the beginning of my experiences. Fast forward some years and we'd moved to a different city, and I'm now 14 years old and in high school. I was in a very dark place during this time and was frequently seeing a shadow out of my peripheral vision. At the cusp of this time period, I distinctly remember hearing my guitar strum at night in my room. It was loud enough to wake me up to look at my guitar, but there was never anybody there. I eventually resorted to asking whatever it was that was doing this to leave me alone, and soon the strumming stopped. So now fast forward to me at 19 years old, in college and working at a children's clothing store to make some money to pay for tuition. I always hated that store. Not because people tended to be rude or the frequent shoplifters, but because there was always such a heavy feeling in there at night. I was scared to be in there alone, tidying up the clothes while my manager was in the back doing the papers for the day. During the day, I would frequently hear our back doors swing open and close while everyone was on the floor. The worst of it happened a week before my last day. I worked a lot with my co-worker Jane, not her real name, and we were quite close and had talked a few times about our shared fascination with the paranormal. She was convinced that it was the spirit of a little boy named Henry who was haunting the store, but I wasn't as sure until one night. We were in our usual routine of tidying, folding messy clothes and sweeping the floors. After we'd finished, we started heading back to the office together when a little voice stopped us dead in our tracks.
Help!
It sounded very close. We freaked out, thinking a mother had forgotten her child in the store, and we looked everywhere. At this point, the shopping area had been closed for more than 30 minutes, so we opened the front doors to see if there was anyone who could have made the sound, but there was no one there. We headed back to the office confused, and on the way, we passed a sock display. I was just about to reach it when I saw 3 sock packs fly off the rung. These aren't easy to remove as they have flat circular stoppers on them to make sure they stay on once hooked. Also, being 5 socks to a pack, they were too heavy to fall on their own and had landed 2 meters away. I quickly put them back, asked whoever did it to stop, and then we ran to the back of the store. We never spoke about it again, but we did do our closing tasks a little faster than usual from then on. Nothing happened for the rest of my time there, but I still think about that little voice often. In my early 20s, I worked at a college for the arts. Essentially, my job was to open up or close the campus, prep the classrooms, and organize the students' gear rentals. It was a really fun job until you were the last one there locking up. The whole place took on a very empty and eerie feeling at night. The campus was split into 2 separate areas, and you had to commute between them via a big parking lot. I worked mainly in our primary building. Our secondary building held video and photo studios with a couple of classrooms interspersed. One evening, I was locking up the secondary campus area with my co-worker. We checked all the classrooms, bathrooms, and studios and shut off all the lights. However, when we got back to the main campus and looked at the security cameras, the lights were back on in one of the studios. We were way too freaked out to go back and turn them off, so we ended up just leaving them on for the night. A couple of days later, and I was on the opening shift. I walked up to unlock the same building and heard a couple of light knocks on the door, right as I went to grab the handle. It was quite early and no student or teacher should have been inside, so I went to the main building to check the security cameras. There was no one inside. Thinking about it even as I write makes my hair stand up. The last story I have to share unfortunately comes from a tragedy my family faced. A couple of years ago, my brother's fiancée passed away very suddenly. I flew out with my parents to go and see him the next day, to mourn together and help him and her family with any arrangements. During her funeral, we found out that she loved "O Canada," our national anthem. I remember staying up late one night in their apartment, wishing for a sign from her to let me know that she was okay, wherever she was. Fast forward a week, and my partner had arranged a getaway to a cabin for us both, but also to help me get my mind off things. In the cabin on the wall was a painting with the words to "O Canada" on it. I believe that maybe it was her way of letting me know she was okay. Now when I miss her, I think back to seeing that painting on the wall and smile. Thanks for inquiring about more stories. Can't wait to listen to more episodes. Kind regards, Georgia. We next have a couple of stories from Swales. Lovely name. She has her own podcast called The Bell Witch Podcast, which I highly recommend you seek out and have a listen to. Swales has sent in 2 stories, which took place when she was a teenager, and both are quite creepy, but the second one in particular is very strange, and possibly involves the spirit of a relative who passed away not long after she was born. Hi Steve. My mum was a psychic medium, so lots of random stuff used to happen to me as a teenager. Small bangs, doors opening, and technology misbehaving. I was pretty used to it by the time I was 15 years old, and it was quite comforting to think that a spirit was looking out for me, even protecting me. I'll begin by telling you about an experience I had when I was cooking my tea on the stove. I heard a voice beckoning me to come.
Hey, over here.
And look in the living room. Presuming it was the TV, I ignored it, but the second time I heard it, it sounded panicked.
Over here.
So I went to take a look. As I got to the doorway and looked at the TV, a massive picture frame fell off the wall and smashed into pieces on the stove, and into the food I was cooking at the time. I quickly realized that if I'd been stood there, it would have definitely hit me on the head too. This came as a shock because it happened at an age before I was comfortable with spirit. Another event took place one evening when I was about 13 years old. I was in the bathroom with my foot in the sink, trying to deal with an annoying verruca that I was treating. I was just in my own little world, humming a pop song kids like to do, when I heard this coughing noise. clear as day, coming from my mum's bedroom. I went cold and ran downstairs to tell my mum what I'd heard. At the time, my mum had a house full of guests, so it was a little awkward, but I told her there was someone in her room coughing up phlegm really loudly. Not fazed one bit, she assured me that there was no one up there, and when I argued there was, she informed me it was my granddad, who died shortly after I was born back in 1985. She told me that he'd been a coal miner all his life and coughed a lot, probably because of the conditions he worked in. Sadly, he passed away due to ill health from the job. Shocked and scared to death, I was almost crying, but she assured me that if I told him I was scared, the noise would stop. So reluctantly, I went back upstairs to finish my foot treatment. As I stood there for a few minutes, all was completely quiet, so I put my foot back into the sink. Almost immediately, the coughing started again, but this time it was louder. Somehow, I was brave enough to go into my mum's room and turn the light on to see if there was anyone there. I can't describe to you how real the coughing sound was. So real, in fact, that I was sure that there was a man on the floor, down the side of my mum's bed. I have no idea how I did it, or where I mustered up the courage from, but I climbed over the bed to see an empty floor, but the coughing was still there. And it continued to get louder and louder, as if it was being controlled like a volume dial on a radio, and I had headphones on. It was so close to my ears. I then remembered what my mum said. If I told him I was scared, he'd stop. So in my mind, I thought, "Grandad, if this is you, please stop as I'm scared." And amazingly, the coughing faded away gradually. I never heard it again, and I often think about the memory and wish I had reacted better. Thank you for your time. Swales, the friendly green witch of the Bell Witch podcast. We now have come to the final collection of stories and to the namesake of this episode. Always remember to close the door. When using an Ouija board, there are a number of things that should always be done to ensure that if you do actually happen to contact a spirit, it has no way of staying with you after the session is closed. In our Listener Stories episode, Episode 50 Part 2, Experiences of a Witch and Other Listener Stories, Katie describes a number of incidents involving friends and colleagues who used Ouija boards and fell foul of their alleged effects. Not taking the proper precautions can be extremely dangerous, whether you believe in their powers or not. It's not always the believers who have bad experiences. So let's now hand this over to our listener Diana and let her tell her story. And maybe after hearing this, if you do choose to try and open an Ouija board session, you'll always remember to close the door. I've had multiple experiences with the paranormal over 4 decades. I'm not embarrassed or worried about being called mad, and I'm also happy to say I'm 100% team believer. I'm also telling the truth. If I was making this up, I'd say less, because this is a lot to take in and digest. My experiences started young with a moving, talking Marilyn Monroe poster. But I'll jump to a time period when I was 14 years old, and I'd moved into my big brother's bedroom after he'd moved out. There were already multiple signs of poltergeist activity in the home, and these were being noticed by all individuals, but never discussed. I'd settled into my new bedroom and was in there with my dog. I was standing on the arm of an armchair, rummaging through items left behind. There were books on the occult, and a Ouija board, and a piece of stained glass window liberated from a local crypt we had once visited. We had lots of fun taking photos, laying on the coffin shelves. My dog was snoozing away on my bed when I suddenly felt an intense prickle of fear, like someone wishing to destroy me. It was a feeling I was struggling to shake off. I could sense something was behind me. I could really sense it, and I immediately felt in danger. I was reluctant to turn around as this feeling of someone staring at me from the bedroom door, boring into my neck, was now intense. Giving into this feeling, I turned to look at the dog, who was also now fixated on the door, hackles up, teeth bared. Slowly, I turned to the door, and to my absolute horror, I can only describe what I saw, which was this terrifying figure, a semi-transparent black shadow, about 6'5" tall in black robes, its hood up, with no face visible, just a void.
Oh my God!
I scooted off to my bed and took hold of the dog, who was tracking the apparition's movements whilst continuing to snarl and growl. My mother, being very religious, had a number of Bibles all over the house, so on instinct I picked one up and began reading from the book of Psalms. The apparition had now moved to the armchair and sat down, gripping the armrests with its bony hands and turning its hooded head towards me. It felt like pure evil. It radiated from it, but at the same time, I didn't want to back down. I continued to read from Psalms until it eventually faded away. I waited a few minutes before calling for my mum, telling her what had happened, and whilst she seemed afraid, she didn't seem shocked or surprised. She tried to get me to sleep in my old bedroom, but I refused, feeling that it was important for me now to show no fear. Reluctantly, she left me in my room with a very edgy dog for company. The following morning, I woke up to my mother wrapped in a blanket sitting on the armchair, looking pretty wild. I asked where the dog was, and she pointed to the stairs. Apparently, the dog woke her at 3 a.m. with frantic growling and scratching at the door. In fact, the dog had left deep and vicious scratch marks on it. My mum was a Jehovah's Witness, and at about 8:30 a.m. that morning, a member of the local congregation arrived at our door. This woman claimed that she had a powerful desire to come and see us, but she didn't know why. She had an older son who had been disfellowshipped from the faith because it was discovered that he'd been dabbling in the occult. My mum sat down with this lady and shared what had happened the night before. It was her opinion that we must have somehow opened up a portal in our home for demons to enter. My mum showed her what was in the cupboards, which included the occult books and the Ouija board, and the lady told us to get rid of all of it. As it was mainly my brother's belongings, it was only fair that we called him to tell him what had happened and that we wanted the items out of the house. He was not at all surprised and accepted everything we said had happened. He came over within the hour and agreed to dump all of the items. After we loaded up his van, he attempted to close the rear doors, but couldn't. It was as if there was some sort of powerful force preventing him, like polar magnets repelling the doors. We just couldn't get them to align and close, no matter how hard we tried. We checked the locks, the hinges, everything we could think of that could have prevented those doors from closing, but we found nothing. Eventually, after a long struggle, he managed to get the doors closed. But as we moved to the front of the van, they forcefully sprang back open.
Oh, you're kidding.
We had the same battle with these doors 3 times, with them opening by themselves each time until we finally secured them shut with rope. The dog went everywhere with us, but there was no way we could get her into the van. It was as if she knew something was very wrong. It was a terrifying journey to the rubbish tip, and once we arrived, we energetically began throwing the items into the trash. But as quickly as we were throwing them away, people began pulling the items back out. Even when we tried to warn them about what these things were capable of, we were ignored. Once home, my brother confessed he'd been seeing dark shadows moving around the house, always just out of view, in his peripheral vision. He also mentions something very strange, and that was he'd always wake up at around 3 a.m. in absolute terror. This was the exact time that our dog had woken up our mother after I'd seen the apparition. His girlfriend said she'd also experienced the same thing, but neither of them had shared their experiences with each other until that day. His girlfriend also said she'd felt something like claws on her chest in the night, but there was never anything there. My mother also had been experiencing the shadows, moving around always from the corner of her eye, and things in the kitchen mysteriously began moving around. Disturbingly, we'd also been hearing whispering and muttering, but we were unable to hear exactly what was being said. This was the climax of what happened in this house, but the intensity had been building for a few years. I was also able to communicate with the entity by asking it to knock on specific walls. 1 knock for yes, 2 for no. I asked if it was a demon, and got a single knock in reply. I have various other supernatural experiences, but it would be easier to tell you as opposed to writing it all out. I'd be delighted to discuss further if you think this may work as an episode. Diana Chamberlain. We will be in touch with Diana at some point to inquire about her other stories, but for now, this concludes this 4th Listener Stories episode, but we still have one more to come. One more episode jam-packed full of amazing stories from people just like you. And it's a special one because we have a surprise for you. So please tune in to our next Listener Stories episode on the 21st of June to find out what it is. It will be a little different. So thanks again for joining us for this fascinating episode of apparitions, poltergeist phenomena, a ghostly grandad coughing, a haunted castle, a haunted pub even, and not forgetting, of course, Diana's demons, perhaps from a dimension only accessed through the space and time of an Ouija board. Who knows? But remember, if you want to add to these stories, what are you waiting for? Get typing and send in your stories now. We're waiting. And in the meantime, please remember Diana's story, her fable, her family's hard-learned lesson, where the boundaries were never set, the spiritual door left ajar, making all doors, proverbial van doors included, impossible to shut. So remember this. Be careful and take heed, because the next person who hears a solitary demonic knock on the wall and is on this show could be you.